These are the skids that we are shipping to the store. There are 4 of them. We have large 8.5 by 11 labels on the outside of each skid. Each skid is labeled either A, B, C, or D. So look for these. There's this kind of a smattering of items on each skid. It's not like one skid pertains to one particular fixture. We just loaded them the best way that we could to maximize space and make sure that things got to the stores safely. So look for that skid. Very important when you get to the store to identify the skids, look at the skids, make sure that there's nothing really apparent, that there may be some damage. If there is, take photos of it, obviously, and then let us know if you do find something that's damaged. We want to find out sooner than later that we need to replace something. And sometimes if you're close enough to our plant in Chicago, we can get you a replacement part while you're setting up and we don't have to make a return trip back to the store. So that's that. Those are how the skids look. That's how they're labeled A, B, C, and D. So look for that. There's B. They won't necessarily look like this, so don't just, we're kind of pointing out that there's 4, what to look for the label, and so on. C, and then the final one is the window display. This skid contains all the windows that will be used within the fixtures that you're building.
Is that where the trim pieces are that'll need to be painted?
Dale, do you know what skid the trim pieces are?
Yeah, give me a second, and I'll come back to you and let you know.
Okay, cool. Just pop
It's
in
in,
whenever.
yeah, it's in a box and it's labeled trim, but I'll tell you here in a second.
Right, and that box is about 12 inches by 12 inches by 60 inches long. Good question, Jen. Okay, since we're talking about cartons, we've labeled each carton with a particular sticker on 4 sides of it that will show what fixture that the contents are used for. You can see, and I won't go through each one of them. The top left here is the item number AX203. That's our job number. And then the 2400 indicates what fixture it goes to. And then there's a description, and then very important to look at here that there are 7 cartons involved with this fixture. What we do when we get to the store, the first thing is we break down the skids and we start sorting by fixture. And what we're looking for is, one, we want to get organized and be very clean about the space. But 2, we're also looking that we make sure that we have all 7 of these cartons, and then this one, all 4 of these ones. And we just want to make sure we have everything that we need before we get started. So if we're missing something or we have a duplicate of something, you can call us or you can call John and he'll let us know. And then we'll try to get you that replacement as quickly as possible. Fingers crossed you would be close to where we're at and we'd be able to get it to you quickly. But just knowing sooner than later is way better for everybody. And as you're going through the installation, it's just good to know that you have all the parts needed to do that. Okay, that's unwrapping and identifying the parts within.
The trim is on pallet A.
Okay, pallet A, Jen.
Got it, thanks.
And you're looking for exterior trim piece for window number 9.
That's the chocolate brown color, correct?
It is chocolate brown. They want it black.
All right, are those the only brown ones?
No, there's another set of brown. But
good to know.
On the outside of every trim piece or trim set, it's labeled for that particular window. So you'll have 2 9s, 2 8s, 2 7s, and there'll be interior and exterior for each.
Very good.
Okay. Any questions from the team on this particular aspect? If not, I'll move on. Okay, moving on. We have created this 1-page sheet for you just as a guide. It's a window location chart. We're showing you within the space and within the fixtures what windows are used for that particular thing. So you can just use this as a reference. It gets a little confusing because we have a lot of windows, so it's just something to help you keep track of. So take note of that. And John, I'm going to give you updated PDFs of all of these as well.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay, applying trim. We're talking about this early because it's very important. It's like the icing that's on the cake. It's something that's used to showcase the windows and show them in their final state. So we wanted to address this early. We've seen some problems in the field and during previous installations where people weren't using enough tape and not applying it correctly and not applying the trim correctly. And we just want this to be very important to you. It's very important to us, so it should be very important to you. Once you get into it, applying trim isn't that difficult. We've had people do it solo. We've had 2 people working in tandem to do it. However you find works best for you, doesn't matter for us. All we really care about is that it gets up correctly and it looks good when it's done and that it's adhered properly to the fixture. So we just want you to know about a few things. So here in step 4 is when, especially in the vinyl windows, they're vinyl. They have this, if you're familiar with construction, they have this, what they call a nail fin on it that represents or indicates to us that that's the exterior side of the window. And sometimes you have stuff that's shown here that maybe one of the corners is protruding out or bent out, and we want to fix that before installing it into the fixture because that'll be problematic when we install the trim. We want the edges or the corners to look very nice, and this would poke one section out or both sections out, and it just wouldn't look good. So we want to make sure that all of those are bent in. When you have a full window wrap of trim, feel free to cut. Yep.
And sorry to interrupt you. I'm having problems actually looking at what you're actually showing on the screen right now. Oh, there you are.
Let's try that. Sorry, something happened.
I was trying to figure out the same thing.
Sorry.
Thanks. I was clicking buttons over here.
Thanks for speaking up. Okay.
I was clicking every button on here too.
Okay, so bent corners, problem. Get them bent back in so that they're flush. Sometimes if you have to, you can run a screw on there just to get it so that it's flat up against our fixture. Step 5, wipe down both this metal surface and the plastic surface before adding the trim. It just helps the tape adhere to it better. Dust doesn't work well with tape, so we're just trying to remove debris and dust and all of that kind of stuff from here. In these weld joints here in the corners, they sonically weld them together. They do something, but sometimes there's a large buildup of material. You can kind of see it here where my pointer is. That can be problematic as well. So what we're asking, and it happens on both sides of the nail fin, just to be aware of that. Take your utility knife or something and scrape off, cut out as much of that as possible. Again, be safe when you're doing it. But it actually cuts and trims pretty easy if you have a sharp knife. But we're just trying to remove that and make the trim installation as easy as possible. So in this window here, let me pull this up. What you can see in this middle picture is we're showing you tape application. So you're going to have, some of you later on in the week are going to have the luxury that we're pre-applying most of the tape going into the store, but for these initial stores, we just didn't have time given the production of the trim. But applying the tape isn't a big deal. What we're asking for is you use adequate amount of tape. We have thin tape that's 16th inch. We use that on all interior trim, so you won't have to worry about the thick. And then we're showing you kind of how to use it. I don't have a good picture of it here, but we try to get the tape as close to the corners as possible because that helps bring the corners together. And then on the long sticks, we're using 4 pieces per edge, and on the shorter ones, we're using 3. So just make sure that you have enough applied to the window trim prior to assembly, and all will be good. And then on the exterior trim, my apologies, exterior trim, we're using thick tape as well. So thin tape goes along this outer rail here. one thing to note is when you're applying that tape, we want to keep that about a 1/16 of an inch or so off the edge of that. So what we don't want to do is to see the tape when you apply it to the fixture. We don't want to be able to have it overhanging, and we definitely don't want to see it once the trim is applied. So we're trying to tuck it back inside of there by about a 1/16 of an inch. So just take note of that. So thin goes on this 1/2 inch rail here that goes along the outside piece, and then we've hogged out this material to account for the nail fin, and that's where you're going to use the thicker 1/8 inch tape that we've shown here. We are testing in one store, and I'll let you know, John, by the end of the day, we tested instead of using tape on this that 1/8 inch thicker tape, we tested using silicone adhesive on that instead. I'll let you know by the end of the day how that worked out. We may ask your teams to purchase that while they're in the store and then use silicone or construction adhesive instead of that thicker tape, but I will let you know. Okay, step 7 is do a dry run. If you've ever installed trim before, it just takes some maneuvering and getting things positioned correctly. So when you're working with 2 people, it's a little bit easier. Again, yesterday I saw some people doing it solo, which seemed to work out fine as well. But just hold your parts up to the window and make sure that everything is centered and looks good before applying it, and then we can go on from there. Just makes it a lot easier. So dry run it and then apply it. Kind of the whole measure twice, cut once application. So here's a few videos for you. These are very low budget videos, by the way. Yeah, some people would disagree that it's a 2-person job, but do whatever you need to do to make the end result look good. What we're showing here in this photograph is what's acceptable and what's not. We want 45-degree corners that create a 90-degree corner, so we don't like a lot of gaps here. That's why we do the dry fit. And then if you remember from that video, it said to just kind of gently, as you're getting this assembled, it's pressure sensitive tape. So if you're applying a pressure to it, it's going to grab. And even when you gently tap it, it's still grabbing. But what we're trying to do is just get this thing in place so that we have some ability to lift it from the surface and make some adjustments before we do that final press down. And again, note, we need clean surfaces that we're applying to, both on the trim and on the fixture, plus the window. And then once you get it in place and you're happy with everything, it's pressure sensitive, so we have to apply pressure all the way around wherever there's tape. Otherwise, it'll be laying on the floor in a day, and that's something that we don't want.